most bizarre video game consoles you didn't know existed. We all know the biggies: Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo. These consoles have sold millions of units over the last couple of decades. But they aren't the only companies making video game consoles. Many game consoles were quietly revolutionary, but completely flopped for one reason or another. Mostly because of a bad marketing strategy or a too high price point. A lot of these little-known consoles are tragically lost to history. Welcome to BingeTv, and here are the most bizarre video game consoles you didn't know existed. Don't forget to smash the thumbs up, share, and subscribe to the channel to see our latest content. Without further ado, let's begin the video. Pioneer LaserActive. Before the rise of CD and DVD, the first optical disc storage to be used commercially was Laserdisc. We all know that PlayStation 1 is one of the first consoles to use the CD format, but the first LD console is Pioneer LaserActive. Released in 1993, the console soon met its demise in 1996 due to the price tag of $1,000. The company was not too greedy, but despite surpassing VHS in terms of quality, LD-related devices, including consoles and game titles stored in LD, are simply too expensive to make. The console itself is useful since it can also act as an LD video and Sega Genesis games player, although you need to add $600 for the latter. Gizmondo. The Gizmondo was a handheld gaming console that's notable for its ability to track users through GPS. One game called Colors would have allowed players to guard real-life locations in their neighborhoods from rival players, much like the gym system in Pokemon Go. The other reason the Gizmondo is so notable is because of the stranger-than-fiction story behind the people who made it. The company executive got into an accident and later became part of controversies. Ultimately, the company that made Gizmondo went bankrupt and folded within a year of releasing the console in minimal amounts, selling fewer than 25,000 units and vanishing into obscurity. Philips CDI. Philips CDI was quietly revolutionary, but lost the spotlight to a bigger, better console in the long run. The Philips CDI was the first video game console to support games on compact discs, but it was marketed as more of a home entertainment platform rather than a video game console. As such, it ended up playing second fiddle to later disc-based gaming systems like the Sony PlayStation. The CDI is also the only non-Nintendo console to ever exclusively feature Nintendo games, including Link, The Faces of Evil, Zelda, The Wand of Gamelon, and Hotel Mario, all of which, by most accounts, are pretty terrible. Nintendo 64DD. One of the most bizarre video game consoles ever was Nintendo 64. It utilized the magnetic disc format, which was already lacking in popularity by the time the 64DD came out. CD-ROMs were already widely used, were much cheaper to manufacture, and could store more data. The 64DD reportedly sold only 15,000 units, leaving 85,000 units for the dump. The 64DD had some interesting ideas at its core. It was billed as a tool for Nintendo's more artistic customers, allowing users to capture images from a TV, create 3D models, and design songs for the racing game F-Zero. There was even a sort of online network that would allow 64DD users to connect and share what they'd made with one another. Unfortunately, the execution was severely lacking. Only 9 games were ever released for the 64DD, 4 of which were various iterations of Mario Paint. Apple Pippin. Most people may not know this, but there was a time when the giant technology company Apple Inc. made its own console. With the help of Bandai as the manufacturer, Apple Pippin released the home console market as an audiovisual, stereo, and television environment, i.e., not a dedicated home console. Apple Pippin acts like a computer while running a customized OS, but instead of a keyboard, you would get the Applejack gamepad as the peripheral device. The platform eventually failed due to numerous reasons, including the high price of $599, while the competitors, Sony PlayStation and Sega Saturn, are sold for much less. Action Max. Video game consoles typically access games using one of two ways: cartridges or optical discs like DVDs and Blu-ray. But then there's weird stuff like Action Max, the only game system to run off of videotapes. You actually needed a separate VCR to use it, which retailed for $99. You'd attach a small red sensor to the corner of your TV screen, which provided a reference point for the light gun that worked with the console. Only 5 games were released before the system became defunct, all playing the same way. Because there's no way for the Action Max to output to the TV, nothing changes on screen whether you hit or miss, and you can't get a game over before the videotape stops running. Once kids figured that out, demand for the Action Max quickly plummeted. Atari 5200. Older gamers have fond memories of the Atari 2600. Titles like Kaboom, Pitfall, River Raid, and many others occupied countless hours of fun for over half a decade before the game crash stopped it. Despite the name Atari 5200 implying it being twice as good, few were impressed with the upgrades offered by the failed console. Atari 5200 only lasted 2 years before being discontinued. The company would try again shortly after with the Atari 7800, which was more successful, but still didn't touch what 2600 did in its prime. Before we get to the top spot on our list, here's a look at some honorable mentions. Namco Super System, Taito Wow Wow, The Fairchild Channel F, Sega 32X. The Sega 32X was an add-on for the Sega Genesis, plugging directly into the cartridge slot, which allowed it to play games that the standard Genesis couldn't. It was kind of a step halfway between the Sega Genesis and its successor, the Sega Saturn. It didn't particularly do well because many people didn't understand what it did or just wanted to wait for the Sega Saturn. It probably doesn't help that the 32X only had 34 games over a period of 2 years. So what are your thoughts on these video game consoles? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, make sure to leave us a like, share this video with your friends, and also subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time for more.